for 17 years, and this is more familiar to me than Taoism. So when I came here, I had no idea what I was going to speak about. Kathy asked me to speak about Qigong, which is one of my favorite subjects, and Taoism is one of the other ones. So I thought I'd talk about a little bit about what we believe about healing. What's it about? How do we get it to flow? So when we understand healing in the proper sense, we understand Qi. And what is Qi? It is energy that is within us. It is actually what we are. It's not something that's in us that flows separate of us. It's something that's in us that is us. Does that make sense? Because one of the things you need to understand about Taoism is it's all about oxymoron. It's all about paradoxes. You know, the Tao that can be named is no longer the Tao. Those kind of things. So when we understand that, we understand that Qi is us. But when we understand that differently, Qi flows through us. So if we were to look at, like, anybody ever gone to an acupuncturist? No? You ever hear of acupuncture? What do they do when they put the needles in?
That's why I don't go. I don't want to. I've thought about it, but I've never gone.
Well, the interesting thing about acupuncture, if you understand meridians and where energy flows in the body, you understand that it flows in the fascia. So all your meridians are in the right underneath the skin level. So they don't push it into where it hurts. They just push it into where they get to the point they need to get to. And when they do that, they get energy to flow or they get energy to stop. Okay? Because disease in our life is caused where energy is blocked, stagnant, or deviated. So if you have a blockage of energy in your body, that will end up being cancer. No doubt about that. Because what happens is energy flows and it hits a dam, and as it keeps hitting the dam, it begins to destroy the dam. And that turns into what we call a tumor, or some kind of evidence of a cancerous element. Okay? Then where energy is slowed down or restricted in some way, those become other diseases like diabetes, like, you know, the reason I got into this whole thing was that back in 2002 I got MS. You know, what a trip that was. Becomes things like neurological conditions or stomach conditions or pathological conditions that can be cured. And then there's deviations of flow, where energy at one point is flowing one way, but then it flows another. So we've seen that based on blood flow, which is good. So when we start to talk about healing, I'll just go back through my story. In 2002, I had a company in Erie. I was in it for 28 years. I was coaching my daughter's swim team, St. George. And one day I realized my whole right side of my face was numb. I didn't think much of it at the time. Then I ended up going to the doctor, and they said, we're going to check you for Bell's palsy and all this other stuff. So they did, and it didn't work. A month later, I met the neurologist, and they found out that I had MS. So you know what you do when you get a disease like that? You start getting on the internet, and you start looking up what are they going to do, how are they going to do it, what medicines do I have to take, what do I need to do to survive my life? Because your whole life changes at that point. You know, you go back to your wife and you say, you know, I want to be in a wheelchair 10, 15 years, right? At the same time, I was at a martial arts school. So we ended up getting invited to a 3-day training camp up in Canada, which we went to. It was fun. We had a good time. But there's where I met my instructor, who was teaching the first 9 postures of the 24 postures of therapeutic Qigong. And I started questioning him almost relentlessly. What do I need to do about getting the energy to start moving in my body? And I didn't really understand much about energy. At that point, it was like energy is gas in your gas tank. So I didn't understand too much of it. So I started asking him the questions, and all he would say to me is, you need to learn to do the postures. You need to learn to do whatever you need to do to learn them. And just do them. Because that's the only time healing works, is when you do it. It doesn't work when you think about it. Now, some people will claim that it works when you intend it, which is good, but you're still doing something. And Qigong, do you need to do the movements? Most of the time you do. And that's all I did. But I would travel to Canada 2 hours there, 2 hours back, twice a week. That was a hell of a journey. But I ended up learning the 24 postures of therapeutic Qigong. I ended up teaching it. But at that point, I realized my MS disappeared completely. I went back for the next neurological exam, and you were completely clean of anything that you had before, which to me was an amazing trip of healing. It's just something you can reach out and grab onto. I have all my scans. It's like, look on, which is kind of cool. So that's when I started teaching, because I realized Qigong is not about just doing something. There's much more to it that you need to understand, and then you need to realize, and it becomes part of you. So what I did after I started learning the Qigong postures and teaching them, I took that to the next level, where I went into California and started studying medical Qigong. So how can you take the Qigong principles that are true and real and begin to apply them clinically to other people? And I ended up getting to the therapist level, and it's great. I mean, I can go in, I can look at your body, and I can see where energy's stagnant or where it's not flowing. And that's what ends up happening to us. We don't realize at the early stages of life, like if you're a workaholic, anybody here a workaholic? You go to work and you come back home and you bring your work back with you, and you're going to spend a couple hours at night working. You're going to tell the wife, man, I don't want to eat dinner tonight. And then you're going to end up going back to work the next day. Anybody ever seen the yin-yang circle? The black and white? Are those two sections different except for color? They're not. They're perfectly equal. So one of the principles of Chinese medicine that you need to understand is life has to be in balance. Perfect balance. So your balance is between yang energy and yin energy. Between movement, between understanding, between going out and living your life, and coming back and relaxing into your life. Those are the two key elements of Chinese medicine that are important to understand. You're never going to get completely in, because that's what the little circle is in the white. It's a different color, because you're never completely one or the other. But when you understand that, then we begin to realize what it's all about. Now in Taoism, which is where medical Qigong stems from, Taoism is much like Buddhism. It's a little bit different in its applications and in its understandings. But what we understand is there's the Tao, right? The Tao is everything. The Tao is the universe, the Tao is God, the Tao is the energetic life. From the Tao, we enter into a place of, we call it Wuji in Taoism. Wuji is the place. Has anybody ever seen The Matrix, the movie The Matrix? Do you remember the scene where Morpheus is sitting in a big white chair, or a big chair, and it's in a white room? It doesn't look like the chair's on anything, and they're all talking. That's Wuji. That's the place I call infinite potential. That's where you can manifest anything. So they needed a gun, and they just got rows and racks of guns. Okay? From the Wuji, which is the great one, the infinite ultimate, comes what? We go from 1 to 2, which is the yin-yang circle, which is duality. Because in this world, in the world that you're living in right now, there is nothing but duality. There's male, there's female, there's dark, there's light, there's cold, there's hot. Right? A couple days ago it was hot. Today's not so much. Yesterday was freezing. It's not good. So we begin to understand that. If we go from the 2, we go to the 3, which is heaven, man, earth. So if you want to be in full alignment with the divine, you have to maintain that relationship. And that relationship is as much earth as it is heaven. So let's say that again. It's as much earth as it is heaven. So you have to ground yourself in the reality and yin energy of the earth, the nurturing, the mothering, the caring energy of earth, with the yang energy. I got to go about my business. I got to get this done. I got to get this done. That's what's important. Okay? Because you're right in the center of that. And that also affects, as we say, so without, so within. That's the same within us. Okay, we have what we call in Qigong, we have 3 places of energy storage. You have the lower Dantian, which is the Jing, or the physical energy. The middle Dantian, which is Qi, which is energetic energy or emotional energy. And then we have the Shen, which is up in the head, which is spiritual energy. So we have the heaven, we have the man, and then we have the earth. same energy, it's just a different form. So the way I like to describe it is this is your ice, this is your water, and this is your steam. It's all water, but it just takes different form. Okay? So that's key to understanding that. They're always transferring. Jing is always converting to Qi, converting to Shen, and Shen to Qi, and Qi to Shen. And you don't feel that when you're at a state where you're at. It's not until you begin to understand, like you said, those who are blessed to have the higher energy. Like St. Paul says, you let go of every sin that holds you down to lift you up, to get you to that higher level of energy. Then you begin to feel that energy. You begin to feel it, and then you begin to understand it. And when you can understand it, then you can move it. Okay? So anybody here ever get angry? Yeah, it's like, oh my God, anger. Okay, so how do we associate anger in our body? It's in the liver. Okay? But the opposite, or the what we call the congenital, the emotion that you're born with in your liver, is not anger. It's love. So the two elements, or the two emotional aspects of the liver organ are anger and love. Love, benevolence, and kindness, anger and rage. And those end up manifesting in you at some point later on in your life. So anybody ever known any 50-year-old that's had a heart attack that was a workaholic? Everybody's going, that person who's 50 got diabetes. That person was 50, 60 years old and they had a stroke. What is causing that stroke? It's all these things that we build up and we hold in. Okay, the lungs hold guilt, grief, and shame, or they hold righteousness, integrity, and honor. Which would you rather have? Second, right? Okay, that's important to realize that you're holding on to stuff that matters not to you at all. So you need to identify what those are to get rid of them. And how do you do that? You do that through healing. You do that through Qigong. That's all it is. Is Qigong a fast thing? No, it's not. But you have to do it. And the crazy thing about Qigong is it's just a slow movement of forms. It's like boring. Why am I doing this? But it's not until you understand it that you begin to realize exactly what it's all about. Okay? For example, in one of the postures, you take the back of your hands and you bring it down in front, you bring it up, and you bring it back down. And you bring it up, and you bring it back down. Now, if I were to take that to one of your children, they go, it's a waste of time. What am I doing? And when I was first learning, that's how I felt. Why am I doing this crazy little exercise where I'm just doing this? But it wasn't until I understood it that I could intend what I wanted it to do. Because Qigong is about mind, body, spirit stuff, right? So when you first learn it, you're going to first learn the movement of it, which is the physical nature of the exercise. The next stage is the breath work, which is the energetic nature of that work. And the third is the spiritual nature of that work, which is the Shen. Okay, so when I learned what it was, I'm dipping into my lower dantian, bringing energy up through my thrusting vessels into my chest. That changed it for me. It's like, that's magnificent. So if you've ever had issues with breast cancer or anything in your upper chest, heart issues, lung cancer, those kind of things, that's one of the exercises that you want to do, which is important. Okay. How much time do I have?
As long as you want. We're not rushing you.
As long as I want. Wow.
You've got a lot of time.
So we'll have lunch here and then dinner.
We have enough food.
Some of us will.
So what I understood about the reason I got into Taoism was at one point I was a deacon in the church and actually literally had an argument with the priest at the altar. It's like there's a little thing, but have you ever had that little voice that comes to you in the side of your head and goes, "What are you doing here?" Oh yes. You had that? Maybe we need to talk. And I didn't have an answer. I literally didn't have an answer. And I never went back to the church after that. It's like everybody's like, where's Michael? Where's the deacon? I didn't want to go back. So So I found myself in this world of no church. I mean, for 17 years, I never missed a service. I mean, whether it was a Sunday service or a weekday service, I never missed. I dragged my kids there. And all of a sudden I realized that that part of my life was over. And I needed to go find something different. Then I had the issue with the neurological condition of the MS. And then I ended up having a dojo at that time. So that's what I was doing for a living, which didn't work. But anyway, I read an article and I was going through this magazine and I saw at the bottom of the page, there was this picture of what was going to be my next instructor. But he was there and I said at the point to my girlfriend at the time, I said, I need to meet this guy. Didn't know why, didn't know how I was going to get to California to do that. And then 3 months later, when the next issue of the magazine came out, it was a quarterly magazine, there was this article on building a clinic, a medical Qigong clinic, which I found fascinating. That was just something that got my motor going. So I ended up calling the name of the writer at the end and found out he actually answered my email. And he got out of it and he said, but I've given the school to this other gentleman. And who was that gentleman? The guy in the ad from 3 months before. So I knew I had to go meet him. I knew I had to register for the classes. So I ended up doing that and ended up going out there finding out that he was a Taoist abbot associated with the mountain in China. And that's where that journey began. But what I find is that Taoism, interestingly, is about the unification of the body, the mind, and the spirit. Because where those exist separately, there's never going to be good health, there's never going to be good understanding of life in general. It can't be. So everything that you do in this world has 3 levels at least, which is the mind, body, spirit. It has the physical level. So everybody take a breath. Feel it? What'd you feel? Feel stuff coming through your nose? You can hear it. You can feel it. You can sense it. It goes into the lungs. Your lungs expand. Your chest goes up. Your shoulders raise up, which is good. But what's the other level of it? There's the energetic level of that experience as well. If you've ever seen a picture of Qi going into the body, it's kind of funny. They have arrows that go everywhere in the body. It's coming in here, it's coming in here, it's coming in here, going in here, going in here. And that's when you begin to understand Qi and air is different. When you take your breath in, all the energy comes into you. And then it releases. And it comes in, and it releases. And it comes in, and it releases. Which is a good feeling. What's the third level? Spirit. So I actually heard this the other day. I was listening to, anybody ever listen to Carolyn Mason? She has a new CD set out. And the guy he's a Christian, but he's also into this stuff, mainly into Buddhism and Christianity. But he actually explained breath as God. When you breathe in air, you breathe in God. Because God exists at every level, even if we don't understand that. You know, we think, oh, we have God within us because we're big and we look just like Jesus and all this. But that's not it. God exists at every level of self. Every level of self. Even every level of quantum, God exists at. So when we say energy, we're not talking really energy. We're talking God. We're talking the understanding that everything we do in life is blessed and is filled with the glory of God. One of the things Carolyn May says, she says, you can talk energy if you want to talk Western world and leave everything kind of, you know, you don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, you don't want to get anybody to go, I don't believe that, so I'm not going to listen to you. But you can also talk in the Christian terms where that energy is grace. Anybody ever hear of grace? Okay. Is grace bestowed upon people by their merits or their deeds? No. It's bestowed upon everybody equally. So as you breathe, as you walk, as you feel the air, as things begin to move, you understand that as being grace. That God is never out of your reach. That God is always there with you. that healing is always there with you. Which is kind of exciting, actually, when you get right down to it. Okay? So one of the things that I wanted to describe to you, you've all heard of Jesus, right? He's a good guy. But when you understand duality of the universe, we understand Jesus as being the perfect source of unity, because he was perfectly God and perfectly man, at least in the Orthodox understanding of who he was. Perfectly God, perfectly man. And they existed as one person, or one entity. So we have that perfect union of yin and yang energy within the person of Jesus. And that's a powerful message. That's where you want to get to in your life, is this concept of, I need balance. I need harmony. Harmony is another interesting concept. Harmony is when all these emotions that we talk about, anger, pain, fear, integrity, righteousness, all those begin to meld into a flow. So in understanding, Qigong understanding, we have fire, earth, metal, water, wood. Fire is the heart organ. Earth is the spleen. Metal is the lungs. Water is the kidneys, and wood is the liver. So when you understand that as a circular element, it becomes very exciting to figure that out. The other thing is we have the controlling cycle. So if you have a fire, let's say the house was burning down the road, and you hear the sirens, what's usually going there? Fire trucks. And what are they bringing? Water. Okay, so like when I was working on some friends, and I had one person that was a client in here, he had raging heart palpitations. Just he'd wake up in the middle of the night, thought he was having a heart attack. Right? The problem wasn't with his heart. The problem was with his kidneys. Because his fire truck would go to put the fire in the heart out, and they go, oh, we're out of water. So they just watch it. So he ended up spending like $45,000 in insurance money on tests to find out that his heart was perfectly fine. It took 2 treatments, worked on the kidneys, taught him some kidney exercises to do, never had an issue since. And that's kind of exciting news, which is good. Who else can I talk about? I did bring something here out of the Tao scriptures, if you're interested in hearing that. I like this one. This is the Hua Hu Qing. Anybody ever heard of the Tao Te Ching? No? You guys got to get out of it. The Tao Te Ching, I think, is the second most popular scripture in history, next to the Bible. It's been printed. It has 81 verses in it. It was written by Lao Tzu, and it's the essence of life. So the Tao scriptures actually take all the stuff that we already know and kind of convert it into Taoist or Chinese terms. So you got to kind of read through that, and then bring the message to life. So for example, spirit in Chinese we call immortals. They're all immortals, and those are the people that we end up talking to. But there's not a whole lot of difference between Taoism and spiritualism in that sense. It's just, but it's not there's no proof, there's no science there. The science is in the magic, M-A-G-I-K, of being able to understand healing based on perceptions, based on spirit. So Taoist priests, for example, will work a lot on protecting people from negative entities, negative spirit. And also, we go in and we end up purging stuff out of the body. Because anybody ever go to a counselor? Okay. So if you've ever been to a counselor and they say, if this happens to you, you do this, right? Which is good. There's nothing wrong with that. But all they're doing is taking those emotions that you have that trigger you and reorganizing them. Saying, okay, you're not going to feel that way anymore. You're going to go do this. Okay? It's what it is. So if you ever have an emotion that still causes that anxiety within you, then you need to get rid of it. You need to get rid of it. We call that transforming through the trauma, as opposed to because there's still some kind of thing that you're holding on to. And I don't care if that's your dad hit you when you were 3 years old, or your parents got divorced at 15, I don't care what it is. It doesn't matter anymore. Because there's no more past in your life to bring that trauma forward. It's your memory of it, which you're going to keep. You're going to keep the memory. You can't get rid of the memory. So if your parents divorced at 15, you're going to kind of remember what happened. It's whether or not you go, ugh, when you think about it. Or do you have that anxiety? Do you have that pit in your stomach that begins to arise when you do that? Those are your questions. I just leave that for you to consider at some point. But I like this particular verse. This one comes out of another scripture of Taoism called the Hua Hu Qing, which is the unknown writings of Lao Tzu. This talks a lot about what is it that you desire in life, or what is it that you need to change about that. So it goes like this. The cords of passion and desire weave a binding net around you. So the cords of passion and desire, the stuff that you want, not that you need, because anybody can take a need and make it into a want. Okay? They weave a binding net around you. They weave a net that you're not going to get out of. They weave a net that you, I can't break this. Okay? Worldly confrontation makes you stiff and inflexible. Okay? Which is one of the main components of Qigong understanding, is that you cannot go out and perform Qigong movements and be stiff. You know, when I watch beginners do Qigong, it's kind of funny because they're like, we're lifting the tripod, it's really heavy, and I'm going to be stiff. But that's not the way it is. You have to be relaxed, because that's how energy flows. Okay, so when it says here, worldly confrontation makes you stiff and inflexible, the physical world will make you physical and inflexible. How many of you have a boss? What do they do to you? They come to you in the physical world and make you stiff and inflexible. I want you to do it this way, it's got to be this way, and you're going to teach everybody this way, a certain way, whatever it is. You begin to understand it, but you don't relax through it. Does anybody ever see anybody do Tai Chi? Anybody ever do the martial arts? Okay, martial arts are an external art form. I'm going to hit this thing really hard, okay? Because I did it for many years. And I found that my Tai Chi understanding and my Qigong understanding actually improved my martial arts, okay? Because I began to work from the internal flow of the body to the person, as opposed to my external force. Because what do you do at the end of a punch? Ki, right? What does that ki do? It stiffens you up and makes you hard. But that's what stops the energy from flowing. Okay? But you watch Tai Chi masters on YouTube or wherever else, they touch people and they send energy from the lower dantian out through the hand. Just like you do healing work, the same in the martial world. You do injury work. So if you want to destroy somebody's kidneys, are you going to go smack them? No. You're going to send your energy to that kidney, and your intention is going to be to destroy that kidney. But anyway, we won't get into that. The trap of duality is tenacious. Bound, rigid, and trapped, you cannot experience liberation. So what we're beginning to talk about is total freedom in your life. Where things, they matter, but they matter only to an extent. They don't matter to the point where they begin to take you over. They don't matter to the point where you can't get to sleep at night, or you're nervous going to work, or you're afraid to see your boss. They don't matter like that. So one of the things about Tai Chi as opposed to regular martial arts is you move away. You release the energy. If you have a punch coming at you, you get out of the way. If it hits you, you just allow it to move you, as opposed to hurting you. So you're not going to go, hit me harder, dude. That didn't hurt hard enough. You just allow it to relax. And that's what life is about. So if you get a bad review or whatever, you just let it go. Okay? Through dual cultivation, it is possible to unravel the net, soften the rigidity, and dismantle the trap. So what's cultivation? This is when you begin to understand that there's a need for you to begin to take on a different pattern in your life. Cultivation is, like St. Paul says, let go of every weight that binds you. Right? One of my favorite lines that he uses. Let go of the weight that binds you, because that's what holds you down. You're not meant to actually walk on the earth. You're meant to rise above it. Not that you're not going to be walking on the ground, but you want to somehow be above it at the same time. And the more you can let go of the sin, the more that you can let go of what's not right, the lighter you become, which is important. Dissolving your yin energy into the source of universal life, attracting the yang energy from the same source, you leave behind individuality and your life becomes pure nature. So one of the things about Taoism as opposed to Buddhism and some of the other isms that are out there is, in other isms, you want to achieve something. You're out there grabbing towards something. Whereas in Taoism, you're just dissolving into it. What matters in your life is no longer important. It's just this dissolution into the universe, which is your dissolution into God. Which I know is a high concept, but if you can just imagine it. We talk about energy, we talk about space. You know, the human body is more space than it is matter. You know, all those little atoms floating around in there, and there's just space in between each one of them. So there's more space than you need to deal with. Free of ego. Anybody here have an ego? We all have egos, right? And we tend to give the ego more glory, more attention than we should. Because the ego is not where you want to be. You want to be in this awakening of consciousness. You want to be in this total idea and concept of, I'm awakening to who God is in me. And that's going to be different for everybody here. Different for everybody here, even the little one. So if you want to awaken to that which is important, you begin to let go of what isn't. You begin to let go of, do I have to work so many hours in my job? Do I have to do this? Do I have to do that? Or can I just be still? Can I sit on my pillow at night and meditate? Do you do that kind of stuff? That's important. That's where you go from the white in the circle to the black. Because the black circle, when we say that's relaxing, it's not about drinking beer on Sunday afternoon watching a football game. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about this internal issues that you go into, the internal struggles that you begin to understand that life is about, which is important. Okay? And it's individual. It's not about doing it as a group so much as it is an individual activity. Because when you die, I don't care how many people you have around you, you're the only one going. It's your turn. It doesn't matter who's there, your mom, your kids, whatever. It doesn't matter. You're going alone. Just like you came into the world alone, you're going out alone. Free of ego, living naturally, working virtuously, you become filled with inexhaustible vitality and are liberated forever from the cycle of death and rebirth. When you achieve a certain level, you don't come back anymore. It's just that simple. You know, we talk about reincarnation, we talk about movement from death to life. At some point, you don't do that anymore. At some point, you've learned the lessons that you've needed to learn here and can take those with you, and then you begin to act differently in spirit. In Taoism, just so you understand, we talked about the upper dantian, the middle dantian, and the lower dantian. There's a pole that exists between all three of those that tie the crown chakra to the root chakra and then all the other chakras attached to this pole. We call that the Tai Chi pole. In the middle of that pole, right around the heart area, is where your soul is held. But it's not your complete soul. It's half your soul. It's the earthly bound soul. And that's always attached to the heavenly soul. This is a difficult concept, I know, I'm sorry. You gave me the time, so I'm going to screw you up. But it's always attached to the heavenly soul. So So whoever you're talking with up in the spirit world, before you decided to incarnate into this world, to learn whatever lessons you needed to learn, to do whatever you needed to do with your parents, whatever lessons that you came here to learn, you always remain connected. Always remain connected. There's always a silver cord between here and there. Okay? When you know that, and you understand that, that's why I often wonder why many Christians will raise their hands and look up in the air and pray. That's not where God is. God is here. God is inside of you. He's internal to you. When you begin to understand that, going in means so much more than staying out. When I talk about Qigong, anybody ever hear the term working out? You all go work out, right? At the Y or the Lecon, wherever. I call it working in. So I'm not saying don't go work out. Of course not. You gain a lot of weight. But you go work out, but you need to work in as well. You need to go to the black side of that circle. Understand this, and this is when I talked about grace, if nothing else. Spiritual freedom and oneness with the Tao are not randomly bestowed gifts, but are rewards of conscious self-transformation and self-evolution. So the gift of mediumship, it's not a gift. It's an art. It's a talent that you go out and guess what? You practice. You practice and you practice and you practice and you learn. How many here went to college? How many years did you spend there? 2, 4 years? To do what? To end up learning something that you could go apply in your life somewhere else, right? So I went to school. I went to become a chemical engineer, came out, never did chemical engineering in my life. But that wasn't my intent of going there. It was coming out to learn something, right? The same here. The Tao talks about self-evolution and self-transformation. Nobody can ever force you to do it. You have to make the decision to do it. That's where reality comes in. You guys have any questions for me? Love to hear song. Goose pimples, you know.